the true test of character. How one responds to correction. One of the most revealing tests of human character is how a person responds to correction. Throughout history, thinkers, educators, and spiritual leaders have agreed that a willingness to accept correction is an essential trait of the wise. In contrast, the constant rejection of criticism and instruction exposes a foolish and self-destructive attitude. This distinction between wisdom and foolishness, rooted in the wisdom of Solomon and in the Judeo-Christian tradition, is not merely a matter of morality, it is a deeply practical principle that affects every area of life. Judeo-Christian wisdom holds that the wise not only accept correction, but actually love it, and reach high levels of performance are almost always those who cultivate a learner-esque mindset. They welcome feedback even when it's hard to hear and use it as a foundation for improvement. On the other hand, those who resist criticism tend to remain stuck or even regress because they are unwilling to adapt, correct themselves, or evolve. But it is in that discomfort that true growth begins. But this mindset is dangerous because it confuses blind affirmation with truth. A truly mature person understands that their worth does not lie in always being right, but in being willing to grow even if that means acknowledging they were wrong. Judeo-Christian wisdom insists that personal growth does not happen in the comfort zone, through honest confrontation with the truth. This is a profound truth. Even those who are already walking uprightly can still grow. But it also brings freedom. The freedom not to pretend to be perfect, the freedom to grow without shame, the freedom to live with authenticity, and the foolish. The wise love instruction and grow because of it. The foolish reject it and become stagnant. This truth has deep applications in personal life, family dynamics, professional development, and spiritual growth. How we respond to correction reveals our character and determines our future. Choosing humility, attentive listening, and continuous change is choosing a life of growth and fulfillment. Correction is not the enemy of dignity, it is the ally of development. Those who embrace it with wisdom become better human beings each day. It's an invitation to live in truth, with humility and hope. There is never a point in life when we no longer need advice. It might come from a colleague, a friend, a family member, or even from our own conscience. The difference between the wise and the foolish is not whether they make mistakes, we all do, but how they respond when those mistakes are brought to light. The response to correction is ultimately a decision that shapes the direction of our lives. The wise are always in process, and that's why they continue to grow wiser over time. Wisdom is not a static achievement, but a continuous movement toward truth. When that confrontation is welcomed with humility, it produces the fruits of maturity, understanding, and strength of character. Pride prevents him from seeing his need for others, his need for change, his need for guidance. This attitude impoverishes not only his intellect, but also his emotional and spiritual life. By shutting out correction, he also shuts out love, community, and learning. His life becomes an echo chamber of his own ideas, unchanged and shallow. The way a person responds to correction is one of the clearest differences between development and stagnation. Instruction and discipline are not seen as punishments, but as gifts that enrich life. Wise parents are open to learning from their mistakes, to listening to their children, to recognizing where they can improve. A wise friend is one who can say, "You're right, I was wrong. Thank you for pointing it out." The kind of humility inspires respect and deepens trust. But when someone clings to pride and rejects any criticism, they often become isolated. Few people want to walk closely with someone who can never admit they're wrong. Relational wisdom begins with the ability to listen and adjust to the truth even when it hurts. This attitude builds an environment of trust and mutual respect. Foolish parents, by contrast, lock themselves into the idea that they are always right, and this rigidity can create emotional distance from their children. Correction, when received well, does not weaken authority, it strengthens it, because it shows integrity and emotional maturity. Within this framework, the wise person is one who recognizes their own imperfection, relative ignorance, and constant need for growth. This openness to learning allows the person to evolve, making increasingly just, compassionate, and effective decisions. A wise individual actively seeks advice, does not fear admitting mistakes, and finds strength in discipline. Wisdom, therefore, is not a final state, but an ongoing posture of humility and learning. By contrast, the fool is offended by correction, no matter how constructive criticism is received as a personal attack. And this attitude is rooted in pride and a distorted self-image, where mistakes are seen as weaknesses to deny rather than as opportunities to embrace. The fool cannot grow because he does not allow himself to. He prefers to justify his actions, blame others, or mock anyone who tries to show him a better way. Instead of evolving, he becomes stagnant, often repeating the same mistakes, convinced that his way is the right one. The wisdom of Solomon teaches that when you correct a wise person, they will love you for it. This might seem paradoxical in a culture where criticism often causes discomfort or rejection. However, to someone who has embraced humility, correction is seen as an act of love. The person offering correction does so because they care about the other's well-being and want them to grow and become stronger. The wise person, recognizing this, not only accepts correction, but appreciates it. They understand that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is an ally, not an enemy. This teaching has significant practical implications. In the workplace, for example, those who grow in the family setting, this distinction is just as clear. In personal and social relationships, openness to correction leads to healthier connections. Of course, receiving correction is not always easy. It requires us to face our limitations, our failures, and our ego. In many ways, modern culture encourages foolish reactions. In a society where self-affirmation and external validation have become ultimate values, correction may seem like a threat to self-esteem. The wisdom of Solomon teaches that instructing the righteous makes them even wiser. The fool, on the other hand, lives in the illusion of self-sufficiency. Practically speaking, we all face situations daily where we must decide how to respond to correction. Accepting correction takes courage. It requires dismantling the defenses of the ego, listening carefully, and being willing to change.